Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the season 6 of the MindShare podcast. This show is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems, a 2-time international award-winning marketing suite for sales professionals. REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. And OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, Canada's largest provincial real estate association. You can learn more about all of our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, check out the details and get yourself registered for our annual MindShare Mastermind taking place on May 26th through the 29th in person in beautiful Mont Tremblant, Quebec. Plus, be sure to download your free copy of our MindShare 101 goal-setting worksheet, as well as learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 274. In 1997, she earned her master's degree in counseling psychology and was trained as a therapist. In 2007, she transitioned into coaching, where her approach to human growth and transformation was greatly influenced by her counseling background. Since becoming a coach, she has supported college students, executives, artists, entrepreneurs, and CEOs in activating their life's purpose with greater courage as they become more liberated from the unwelcome influence of self-doubt. She is the host of the podcast, How I Made It Through, which explores the intersection of personal growth and spiritual experience. And she has authored 2 books on emotional intelligence and resilience. Joining me on this episode of the MindShare podcast is life and executive coach, Kristin Taylor. Kristin, welcome to the MindShare podcast.
Thank you so much. It's such a privilege to be here.
It is, you know what? It's a privilege to have you on the show today. I'm excited about this conversation. I know as we, before we got on air, we were chatting about this, and there's some like-mindedness already, which is fantastic. I also believe that based on a lot of what we do here as a company with MindShare 101, with our coaching and consulting, and how we work to help people on a regular, you line right up with that in terms of what you teach and how you teach. And I think that there's going to be some fantastic insights for a lot of people. And to our audience, I want to share with you all that for a lot of what you do here on this show on a regular basis around mindset, around mapping, around, what it really takes to motivate yourself to get to your next level. You're going to hear different thoughts from Kristin today that are going to come from a different angle. They're going to come through with different words, but there's going to be what I imagine to be some very similar paths we're going to be traveling. So it's an honor to have you here today.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm excited to learn from you too.
Well, and this is the back and forth. This is the fun of these things, right?
Yes. And
so
both grab our glasses.
I know this is, I do that. And it's funny because we're live on air and we're actually recording the show with video, and I got these lights in the studio and everything else. You get the glare off the glasses. And I noticed yours didn't have that. And I was wondering, why do my glasses have that and yours don't?
I think you have more light coming through, although right as we got started, the sun is starting to gleam in. So who knows what kind of glare is going to show up for me.
Well, look, video tips. We always talk about, lighting needs to be in front of you, not behind you. So that's not a bad thing that's in front.
Not a bad thing.
Curious, though, I just read off your bio. Can you tell us in your words, Kristin, who are you? What do you do on a daily basis? I know why you're here. I've got a good sense of you, but just
who am I? What an existential question. Who am I?
Hey, when you asked me that, I said, we don't have all day.
I know, right? It's such a big question. So who am I? I'm not going to answer who I am. I'll tell you just a little bit about what I do that will inform a bit about who I am. So as you stated, my background is that I was trained as a therapist. And so currently I work, as you know, as an executive coach, but the way I work with my clients is that it's really getting inside their heads and inside their hearts. And what I mean by that is so many people, even the people that look like they've got everything together and they look incredibly successful, they are battling a lot of fear and self-doubt, not everyone, some of them, or old tapes or narratives that interrupt their progress. They've been doing things the way they've been doing for so long that they don't know what they don't know. And so I work with people, particularly around understanding their nervous system, that it is the operating system of their entire being. And if they are emotionally dysregulated, or if they are in an activated state of stress, it impacts their capacity to think clearly, to design their lives, to manage stress and emotion. And they're not optimizing the operating system, their brains, their thoughts, their beliefs. I'm always looking at what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you believing? And who do you know yourself to be? Back to your question, who are you? If they've got old childhood tapes or tapes from a job where there was conflict with someone or they didn't achieve the success they wanted to achieve, those things, and they really tend to wrap up into disempowered sense of self, fear, that goes riding shotgun wherever they go. And we need to learn to quiet and update and regulate.
When you say like old tapes of like, are you talking like literally like family videos when you say that? Of like looking back to see who you are at the core?
Not actual literal family videos, although sure, if they have that can
but
make
memories, thoughts, experiences.
It's memories and beliefs. I had someone actually yesterday share that he always thought he was afraid of heights because his mom said he was afraid of heights until he had this very amazing breakthrough where he climbed this mountain and he was like, I'm actually not afraid of heights. I was just told that.
Got you.
So that is one example, but it could be any sort of, we learn so much about who we are at a young age, and we have all of these formative experiences. And whether it's our mother's beliefs, or our uncles, or our brothers, or a time when maybe on the schoolyard we stumbled, we were humiliated, it's like we ingest that and there it stays and it doesn't get updated. And so people, I work with people who've been bullied. I work with people who've been a bully. People who have they get locked into place about a sense of self that isn't as liberated as it could be to help them move towards whatever vision they hope to achieve. And so we want to be able to break those things down, dissolve them. We want to understand how to recognize. Here's a question. I'll say, what are you feeling? And people will say, they'll give me a story. And I'll say, the story is appreciated. However, what I'm asking is, what is the emotion you're feeling right now? And they'll give me a story. And I'll say, no, what are you actually feeling?
Right.
And they'll give me a story. And so often I encourage people get a wheel of emotion. It's just all the feelings, the nuances, because we can be feeling a lot of different things at the same time in order to be able to master being human and being a successful human, however that is defined. We need to understand that we do have feelings and we have feelings for a reason. They're data points. And what I'm helping people to do is to increase their self-awareness. One of the most important ways is not just to know the story you're telling yourself, but it's to say, what am I actually feeling? Maybe I'm feeling sad.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm feeling agitated. Maybe I'm feeling regret. Maybe I'm feeling jealousy. Maybe there's so many things. And maybe you're feeling, various intersection of all of those things. But I have processes. Name your feeling. Inquire into your feeling.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Like if I sat back and I labeled that out and said, if you asked me a question, I gave you a story, that's not, and as you kept saying that, they'll tell me a story. My mind started thinking, you're looking for a word.
I'm looking for the name of a feeling.
Right.
A word.
Right.
Or words.
Okay. So then the next question becomes, based on that word or words, is there a direction, a path to take for that particular? So if I said to you, I'm feeling sad, would you go, good, do this? Or if I said to you, I'm feeling jealousy, go do that. Am I on the right track? I imagine it's obviously much more complex than that.
Well, it's actually much more simple. It needs to be simple if people are going to actually start practicing it. Because again, what I'm talking about is that we all have all of these experiences. And as a human being, we have thoughts and feelings that create our beliefs. And we're talking about emotional intelligence. So if you're going to be masterful in terms of managing your nervous system, which is the operating system, masterful in recognizing what do you want to feel, what do you want to think, what do you want to believe, you need to understand and be well versed in that language and that personal awareness. You wouldn't go to a car and start working on it. I certainly weren't. If you didn't know what is the carburetor, where are the spark plugs, and maybe, those aren't even in cars anymore, but you need to know the machinery. And so if someone says to me, I am sad, I have a system to say, okay, let us try to move sadness through. And the first thing is that we can't, whatever we resist, persist. It's called amplification, growth.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually need to face it versus avoiding it. So you say you're sad. That's naming it. I want you to use the word nice. It's an acronym that I've created.
Okay.
Name it. Sadness. And then you want to inquire into it. That's the I. And this is a bit of mindfulness. And there are two ways to inquire. One is, what are you telling yourself? What is the story in association with sadness? And the other is, where do you feel it in your body? Because emotion, really, at the end of the day, it's just energy, it's just sensation. Because we can get wrapped up into the story where we perseverate and it cycles over and over and over. And again, we over-index on it. It becomes a sense of who we are, not just a feeling that we're having. So I say, let's pivot from the story, because that story, we often give too much weight, and just emotion is a sensation. Where do you feel it? Well, perhaps they feel it in their heart. Is it sticky? Is it soft? Is it thudding? Is it, just sensation words? Okay. And what that does, David, is that it creates curiosity and neutrality. Again, it's separating, so it's not so self-referential.
Mm-hmm.
Gives it a healthy distance. And then we're going to talk black belt of mindfulness. C is compassion. And this one is really, really challenging for so many people because they think it's being weak. Suck it up, just move on.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, self-compassion studies have shown, and I encourage all the listeners to learn a little bit about Kristin Neff, and as a Nancy E, 2 F's as in Frank. It is the most reliable source of resilience to move past things. And it's just common humanity. If you're feeling sad, just, that it's okay to feel sad. Talk to yourself like you would someone you actually care about, and hopefully you do care about yourself. And then it's moving into E, and that's where I do some energetic clearing. I know that sounds very metaphysical, but using our imagination to imagine that sadness, let's say it's in the heart. Imagine you've got a vacuum cleaner and you're sucking it out, just moving it through. So that's one way of just like, and what, in terms of the neuroscience that does, it takes you out of what's called an amygdala hijack, where you're in your fear zone or you're in your emotion zone, gets you cleared. And now you can actually say, what do I want to feel instead? I want to feel inspired. I want to feel excited. I want to feel confident. What do you want to think instead? I want to think I can do this. I want to imagine myself signing a contract, being introduced to that person I've been dying to meet, whatever it is, because now you've opened up the capacity to get out of that really restricted fight or flight place into creativity. And we've got these gorgeous brains that we're not utilizing so much. They can be our GPS. Now you've just given it the ability to really work for you, because our minds are our employees. And so that's one of the ways you can move through. This is emotional intelligence. It's being able to increase the vernacular of your emotional awareness at any state of being and shift it, but you don't bypass it, you metabolize it. And NICE is one formula to do so.
I like the explanation on that. And I saw parallels to, I guess, things that I do for myself, things that I teach.
Yeah.
For example, journaling, okay, really being able to get it out.
Get it out.
So let's write it down.
Mm-hmm.
Let's actually put in perspective what's happening. Let's take it out of the subconscious. Let's make it conscious. Let's make it live and breathe on a piece of paper.
Yes.
I'm going to write it as if somebody else might accidentally see this. Right? So understanding that I am the only one reading my journal, but if somebody else was to read it, what would they see from me? And the reality is, normally, as we write down and we journal, I do believe, and it's not that we don't all go through our own emotional roller coasters and things don't happen. And if you're driven enough, things are going to happen. They are going to happen. 100%. You are going to fail. You're going to lose. You're going to learn. You're going to succeed. Things are going to happen. Mm-hmm. And through journaling, I've come to realize it's a great pathway to be able to get those feelings out, get them on paper, make them live and breathe, and not even worry about anybody else reading them, but for myself to be able to look them back over and say, you're worried about all this stuff. Yet when you write this down, you've got this long list of amazing that just happened in your day to day. What are you so worried about these little things for?
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic pathway to be able to take some of those thoughts and, again, just get them out there and make them live and breathe.
Yeah. I love that. It's also perspective. Because it
In a
starts spiraling.
huge way. Huge, right? Because I mean, think about it. Like we could look at and we all go through the ups and the downs, but you can look at something in a day and allow it to tear you down because of the maybe emotional irregulation. And I want to talk to that in a moment. Yeah, right. But yeah, you're not regulating properly, and therefore you're allowing that to tear you down. Whereas when you put life in perspective, you've really got to look at yourself and say, is it all that bad? Or am I in a really, really good place? Yes. And I do believe, and I know for myself, oftentimes as I write, I realize, hey, things are not that bad. Yes. I'll tell you this, like, and this will be a segue here. And I think I shared this in, all my listeners, you'll know this, but I think I shared this on my previous episode, which was a solo episode. And again, we were talking off air about, guesting and whatnot, but we were on stage last week, all week at an event. And so we pre-recorded the episode. And I think I shared this, but a couple of weeks ago, I was in a moment and I was having a thought and it started to eat at me. And I was thinking to myself, why not? Right? Why is it that, not me? Why this, why that? And I was thinking about how other people's thoughts were impacting the way I was feeling. And not that I was hurt that they were thinking, moreover, as to where I'm looking for the benefit. And all I can see is maybe the opposite to that. Mm-hmm. Then you're sitting there and it's eating at you. And it's bothering you. And this is where you're going, and this is what I started thinking about when you said about the one word a moment ago, right? I started going, what was it? Was it jealousy? Was it anger? Was it sadness? Mm-hmm. And I don't even know how I would pinpoint it right now, Kristin, but I would say to you that I was sitting there and I was lamenting. And I was getting inside myself going like, right? Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden, seriously, out loud, I started asking myself questions. And I started, and it, had anybody else been watching, it would have been the weirdest thing going on ever. But I'm serious. I'm having a conversation with myself, mm-hmm. and you make a realization that you got to where you are today because of the way you do things. So stop questioning. Like, it's not that we can't get better, but stop questioning how you do things. Stop doubting yourself based on what you think other people's opinions are about what you're doing, and stay on path because it's gotten you to where you are. Right. That's how you got here today. Right. And I'll tell you, for me, it was like, but I had to talk it out.
You had to talk it out. What you're doing is self-coaching. What you're doing is self-leadership, and the mindfulness piece is that you noticed it. And that is so important. It's the biggest step, is just to bear witness and almost step out of yourself to recognize, oh, it's happening. I'm starting to spiral, or whatever just happened has activated a place in me that is uncomfortable. And you interrupted it. You could have gone all day long. I think many of us
used to.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
So human. And so I love what you're saying. You're like, if you'd asked me, how am I feeling? I wouldn't have been able to answer that. So I want to pause there because that's such an important distinction. When we're in the spiral and it's just this roller coaster of storyline, thoughts, mm-hmm. It's going everywhere. It's really hard to go, well, what am I feeling? You're like, I'm actually not even in my body. Yeah. It's like I only exist in the thoughts. And that's where I love what you're saying about the journaling. Get the thoughts out, because it is, to use what you said, I can't remember whether it was when we were recording or not, taking the trash out.
Yeah.
Just get it out. And sometimes as a coach, I'll just start a meeting and I'm saying, as if it's an IV, from your arm to mine, vent. Let me know what's happening so that you can be present. And we'll give it a timeline, because some people just need to be like, I've had all these thoughts going into my head and I haven't been journaling. And let me be the repository for all the garbage. And then we'll start to sort and get you back to you.
We deal with, look, we all go through it, right?
We do.
We all have the negative thoughts. The self-doubt creeps into our minds. We find ourselves totally off the rails, which leads people to be unproductive, distracted, leads us to feel down. Yeah. And as we look at the audience that is tuned into this show today, they are leaders. They are self-starters, self-motivators. They're entrepreneurs. They're realtors. They're business people. Overall, hard workers, a lot of hard workers. And some of you I wish would work harder. But anyways, we'll do that for another time. But it's all very much in serving everybody else's purpose, right? We want everybody to succeed. But as we talk about these things, I think that because of the people that we deal with in our world, it is very easy to get down when you're not finding the successes that you want. And because of the fact that there's so many salespeople, people that run their own business, for lack of better words and way to say it, it's an eat what you kill business. You've always got to be in a hunter mentality. And if you're not hunting, you're not eating. And then you go hunting and you still don't trap. And so you still get down whether or not, because you're still not eating as much as you want to. Right. And again, in our worlds, because you're not getting up every single day to go essentially face a paycheck, right? Because you're again eating what you hunt. Mm-hmm. The world is your oyster. You can have as much as you want if you continue to work for it. At the same time, a lot of people put a lot of work in and don't necessarily get what they want. And then again, there comes that self-doubt. There comes that stress, that anxiety. So I guess I'd say, how can we identify and address the sources of the stress, the anxiety, and then and essentially adjust that self-talk that we do in our day-to-day work?
Yeah. So there are a lot of ways to answer that, but this is where I want to start.
I imagine that's loaded, right?
It's loaded, but it's so important. I love the question because it's where people are living. It's so real, myself included. It's not like just because I do this. I mean, I'm continually practicing what I teach, and I have good days and I have bad days, but it's like keeping the momentum going. Mm-hmm. And so this is why I talk so much about the nervous system. And you're talking about how do we get people back on track? How do we ourselves get back on track? Well, what you were talking about was dysregulation. So you're going out there and maybe you are not experiencing the success, even though you're putting in the hours. And you're like, I'm following it, I'm doing it. And why is it not working? And you feel a pit in your stomach and your heart is racing and you wake up in the morning and there's just so much that you're carrying also in your body. What's really important to understand in terms of who we are as human beings, and this is why I make the distinction that it's not just positive thinking, because 80% of communication goes from the body to the brain, not the other way around. So if your nervous system is dysregulated and you're thinking every good thought that you've ever heard David or any other smart human being tell you, your body's going, that's great and all, but we're in peril. I'm activated. Okay. So I'm going to go a roundabout way to getting back to some literally exercises that you can do to down regulate. So help me get there if I get off track.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay. I love this.
But I want people to envision a traffic light. And this is what I was talking about earlier. It's that.
Is it red? Because I got to go. I don't have time for this.
Hurry.
Come on, where are you going?
Oh my God. So he's like, I had that too. I couldn't not say that. Okay. So you're envisioning a traffic light. And the reason we're using the metaphor of the traffic light is this idea of self-awareness. You need to at any moment go, what state am I in? This goes back to you when you're having all these thoughts and you're like, if someone asked me what I was feeling, I wouldn't be able to say. This is a good tool to know, where am I in my nervous system in a simple way. So if you were a green light, that's optimal. You're totally present. And if it had words, it would just say, I am. I'm focused on whatever it is first at hand. And I feel completely connected to myself, other people. I have access to humor and creativity. It's where we need to live more often, but few of us live there predominantly. Yellow light, and that's what's called, it's like parasympathetic. When you're looking at the nervous system, you're in rest and digest, happy place, prefrontal cortex, creativity, executive function. Yellow light is the slow down or maybe preparing to speed up. That's when you're activated, sympathetic activation. And a lot of this comes from training around understanding the vagus nerve. If anyone has any awareness of the vagus nerve, we can get there. Yellow is, if it had words, it would say, I have to. I'm in yellow right now. I'm not, sitting on the couch with my family watching Netflix. I wouldn't have the energy to find my thoughts. Like I had to get up and give energy. I get to do this, but I have to do this. Like it gives energy. You want it. But if it starts to rise and it isn't abating, then you get into the red, which is I can't. It gets into burnout, where getting out of bed is really difficult. You're more short-tempered. You're not thinking clearly. It's just things feel like it takes Herculean effort that you don't have. So when I'm working with executives, I want to help them be in the green more often.
Right.
I want to know in the spectrum of that yellow of I have to, when do you get back to green? You talked about I want people to work harder.
Yep.
I want people to work harder, but smarter, because I don't want them to spend too much time in yellow, and I certainly don't want them in red.
Of course.
Because then we get into burnout. So now in the morning, you're waking up, and you need to know, am I green? Am I yellow? Am I red? If I'm yellow and it's serving me, I have to.
Hold on. Sorry. I apologize. We wake up in the morning and almost have a realization, have this out loud conversation around where am I feeling today, right now?
The morning is just one example.
Okay.
What we're talking about is self-awareness.
Okay.
At any point, at any time in the day, pause, check in. Am I red?
This is one of those little practices that anybody could do at any time of the day and just go, hey, where am I at right now?
Yes.
I'm green. Everything's good.
Yeah. Let me celebrate this. Now is the time that I get to do something creative. If I'm in the zone, let me do something really creative. Maybe I need to be in front of people. Maybe I need to be collaborating. I'm in a really good headspace. Okay. If I'm in yellow, I might just get stuff done. I might be in front of people. I might be on stage. I might be whatever it is where I have to be on. I want a little bit of energy. Talking about upregulating, downregulating. Like if you're going under the freeway, you want to hit the pedal to drive faster. That's upregulate. Get off the freeway. You are slowing down. That's downregulating. So you're playing with your energy fields, and you can shift your energy fields. And that's what I want to talk about. So the first thing is awareness. Where am I? Is this a useful place for me to be given what is on my plate? The thing about red and yellow, in terms of nervous system regulation, they're not always the best when you're trying to choose your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs about who you are and what you want to accomplish, because you're activated. Green is that place where you can just say, okay, this is what's happening in my life. This is who I am. I am successful. I'm bringing in this amount of money. And you're not just visualizing it. You have to remember our brains don't really know the difference between what we imagine and what's actually happening. So feed your brain like a GPS exactly from the inside out what you want to experience. What is it going to taste like? What's it going to feel like? What is it going to, look like? What is it going to sound like? Using all of your senses, feed your brain what you want to experience as if it's happening now. But then I want to get back. I know I'm talking a lot. I want to get back to, so how do we cool our jets and downregulate?
Right. Okay. Now I'll pause you for 1 second there. And just to throw that at you is, as you say about the GPS, we teach a process called mapping. And what mapping is about is let's identify what it is that you want. Where are you trying to get to? What are you trying to achieve? And this is both life and business. And I like to start with life because oftentimes when you ask people, what's your goal? The first thing they come up with is how much money they want to make. And what I try to do is put life in perspective and say, well, what is your big goal in life? Like, what do you ultimately want in life? Like, if you fast forward to the end of life, what would you look back and want more of?
Yes.
And most people tell you time.
Yes.
So if it's time to do what? Time to enjoy, time to spend with family, time to take care of thyself. Wonderful. Let's map that now. And now what we're doing is we're breaking down life, we're breaking down business, we're breaking those down through a process into essentially daily action items. And what we've called the GPS is really the schedule. That if you could take your goals and map those into the schedule and execute daily on that schedule, you should be taking yourself closer to achieving your goals. Then we've got a process for tracking that so we know how much we've actually accomplished.
Nice.
In conjunction with that, a lot of that is that what I mentioned earlier, I don't know if we were on air or off air, but journaling. Let's now put that in perspective. And so for myself, I will always start my day by reviewing my goals and then journaling. And what I'm journaling is essentially intention setting. What is going to happen today? What do I already have? Even though I may not have it physically, I've got it. Mentally, I've got it. And we're just going to work through this day and we're going to be there. And so as you're explaining that,
It's a parallel.
It parallels to what we're doing on this side and saying, it is on the right track because, and again, I'll tell you, that's a pillar for me. That's a pillar for many people that I work with.
Absolutely. I love that you said that. It is such a parallel. It is such a parallel. And what I'm adding to it is to say, you want to be able to really trust that you are in the right state of mind and body to go through those processes and actually believe them. Because if you are writing or you're envisioning or you're mapping, but fear is in your nervous system, self-doubt is just back here and you're going, shh, shh, shh. It's this energy that you don't want. I use the metaphor of the car. I'm using a lot of metaphors of traveling in the car right now.
No, it's good.
There's this wonderful video by Sarah Gilbert. She's the one who wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay, yeah. That's right on the name.
Yeah, yeah. I think she was at like a Salesforce. I think I saw Salesforce in the back of it. She's talking about the creative journey. And I will not do it justice, but she talks about, she says, I will literally sit my fear down in a chair in front of me as if I'm talking to it. And I say, okay, we're about to go on a journey. Okay. And you are so welcome because we are human. We're going to have fear. You can't just say, I'm not going to have fear. I'm going to be fearless. I mean, the only people who are fearless are sociopaths. Like we have fear. We have fear for a reason.
It's normal, right? Yeah.
It's normal.
Biggest motivator for anybody in life.
Yes, yes. But she said, you're going to go on this journey, but you need to sit in the back seat. You can't play with the radio. You can't choose the snacks. You do what you do really well, which is sitting in the back, going, we're all going to die, we're all going to die, we're all going to die. I will drive. I'll choose the radio, I'll choose the destination. You're welcome to come, but you cannot be making the decisions. But if your nervous system and your habit from childhood or any other place is that fear is in that front seat rather than in the back seat, then it will start, it always does that, it will start to sabotage your actual belief. You will feel like an imposter. I'm going through the motions, but I don't fully believe it. And so I said the morning, but at any point, we need to and I'm looking at a book right in front of me. It's called Shake It Off. Mm-hmm. We're the only mammals who, when we experience something incredibly stressful, we just, push it down, never let them see you sweat. Other animals and children, if something scary happens, and scary can be someone says something, or, you look at your bank account and it's not where it needs to be, or an email comes in and there's a threatening tone. Like there are all sorts of ways where you can go,
yep.
And then we just swallow it and push it down. Other animals and children, they literally shake it off. They will move their bodies. And so get up, do jumping jacks, do burpees, do.
Well, this was how do we get past it? I'm scared. Like you say fear, I think of jumping out of a plane.
Well, then your tolerance for fear is a lot greater than mine. Mine is, stepping off a curb that's too high. So, got to know what freaks you out. I'm being silly. You got to know what freaks you out. I gave the cues. There's so many cues.
Hey, okay, here. We're talking to salespeople, picking up the phone to have a conversation with somebody.
Absolutely. So
how about posting on social media to build my business?
Yes. Post all of these things, activate us. And your finger might be shaking or whatever it is. So what I'm saying to you is that you need to discharge the stress. And what I'm saying by that, I'm going to start with movement. Movement. There it goes again.
Well, but how does it do that? What's it doing?
It's some feature that's in Zoom, and apparently it's also.
It likes the things you're saying, and it's like,
if I gesture,
keep going.
yeah, it's really encouraging me.
Talk about AI, eh?
I feel so flattered. So move your body in some way to actually discharge the stress.
Yeah.
Okay, move your body.
Okay.
The next thing you can do are just simple breathing exercises, and this is the down regulation. And so when we inhale, it activates the sympathetic nervous system. That is, that's the one that's run, move fast, save your life. You're a tiger being chased by a tiger on the Serengeti, run like hell. So when we inhale, we're activating sympathetic. When we exhale, we're activating parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. So ratio breathing, you inhale through the nose for like 4 counts, exhale through the mouth slowly as if you're breathing through a straw for 8, 10, 12 counts. And you're training your body to slow down. So you just move, you just breathe, and you will notice and do that 6 breath cycles. There's something magical about 6.
Interesting.
Breath cycles in, out. Do it 6 times after you've done like 30 seconds of vigorous movement if you're nervous, if you're in yellow or red. And then you take a deep breath and you're imagining all the things that you don't want to think. You're holding at the top of the breath. And as you are exhaling, you're imagining you're releasing all that crud. The last sale that didn't go through, the fear of what if someone hangs up on you or whatever, thinks you're a fool, whatever it is, the gremlins in our brain. You're exhaling. What do I want to feel and believe? I want to feel confident. And I want to believe that I am moving closer to my goal and I am achieving success right now.
It obviously takes practice.
It's all about practice.
Well, it's a lot of practice, and then it's got to be, there's got to be some sense of results driven, because at least if you've practiced it, you go through it, and now you start to get yourself on the other side of it. And then the next time you run into that, you'll be a little bit more confident that, hey, I've got a mechanism to get me out of it. Like I know for myself, we talk about fear. And supposedly one of the biggest fears anybody's got in life is standing on a stage in front of people.
Yeah.
I'm like, put me in, coach. I'm ready. I don't get scared of it. I enjoy it. I will say to you though, for years, and I've been doing it for years, I'm fortunate. I'm very grateful to do what I do. And I have a ton of fun doing it, because you get to see the results that other people achieve because of what you do. You get to see those results down the road. And it's not just, hey, great job. It's like months later where they come back and they go, hey, because of that thing that we did together, this is what I achieved. And that's where you're like, you just look up and you say, like, I'm so fortunate to get to do what I do.
Such gratitude. Yes.
Now I will tell you, for years, and it still will happen, even as recently as last week, we're about to take the stage, and now all of a sudden there's those feelings coming, and and I'm breathing, and Jennifer, my wife, should be like, okay, relax. And I'm like, I'm relaxed, but I'm doing my breathing. And it's funny that you say that, because I realize that the breathing, like just these deep breaths, start to just regulate the insides. I've also leveraged self-talk.
Heck yeah.
And what I've done is I've said to myself, that feeling, because I asked, do you know the name Simon Sinek?
Of course.
I asked Simon one day, we were doing an event, and I said to him, I got to ask you a question. Do you get nervous before you go on stage? And this must have been 7, 8, 9 years ago. Do you get nervous before you go on stage? And he looks at me, puts his hand on my shoulder. He says, David, if you don't get nervous before you go on to help a whole bunch of people, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And I went, well, that's a sigh of relief. Okay, so you get it too.
You normalized it. That's the self-compassion thing. It's a common humanity. We all are human.
That was huge, Kristin. And now I'll tell you that one thing that I do now is, instead of going, I'm nervous, and I teach this to my kids, I teach this to others, I'm actually pumped with adrenaline.
Yes.
So I'm now trying to I've convinced myself, and I mean, I'm there now. It took time, practice, repetition, consistency, right? Still self-talk, but it is that thing of those feelings, they're not nerves, they're adrenaline.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, when you talk about movement, I actually throw a little bit of Led Zeppelin in my ear.
Love it.
Okay, before I take a stage, and I'm sitting there, I'm bopping my head, I'm moving. Okay, bopping the head, a little bit of breathing. Yeah. The minute I take that out, it's like microphone in hand, let's go.
I love it. So let me add to this, because I love that so much. But with the
I figured that would sort of take you in, right? Like just give a little
Okay, so most important question, because I love Led Zeppelin. What song? What album?
Ramble On.
So good.
I'm about to go ramble on, so it's just fitting. Okay.
So what I love about that is you're using a bit of cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. You're reframing the experience, and that's why the emotion wheel is so important. Because instead of like the association with nervousness is like something scary, I'm weak, whatever that association is for someone historically, it's you get to say, I've got excited agitation, or I've got a killer instinct, or I've got, I'm ready to pounce, or whatever it is, you are reframing it.
Yeah.
You are reframing it. And then the music, I often tell people, like, have your fight song for sure. Yeah. Have your fight song, because what we're always doing, we get caught in the trance of fear. We get caught in the trance of unworthiness. We're continually hypnotizing ourselves with what we are thinking, feeling, and believing. We get to choose the track. And that's why I asked you what song, what track, because how are we choosing the trance? Choose the right trance. What are you feeding yourself through music, through movement, through thought? And so what you're also doing in terms of the vagus nerve, and I think I can't remember, it's the 10th or the 13th, I think it's the 10th cranial nerve at the base of our spine, and it meanders around our head and it touches all major organs. And what people have found historically, again, is that people like monks or yogis or people who meditate, do yoga, they have a more toned vagus nerve and they have lower incidence of anxiety. And so breathing, deep breathing, and actually, like when your wife is saying, calm down, just relax, start with an exhale first. Because people who are in that yellow/red, they're hyperventilating. Short, shallow breaths, that upregulates. You need to downregulate. So start with a and then breathe. Let it out and let it in. Everyone should be saying when, exhale, just exhale, just exhale when people are nervous instead of just breathe, just breathe. Mm-hmm. So when people have a more toned vagus nerve, they're not as prone to anxiety. And so what you are doing is with the music, I want you to not just listen to that as to get into the right trance state. Hum along. Humming tones the vagus nerve. Think of monks in monasteries chanting, people in churches singing. Everyone's in there getting into this trance-like state of unity consciousness, love consciousness, reverence. But what they're doing is they're fine-tuning the vessel of their body to relax. So get that ramble on, and if no one's around, sing along, hum along.
I'm telling you, I certainly do. Like, people will see me, and I it's just before I get on stage, typically speaking, I got the earbuds in, and it's almost don't talk to me. Mm-hmm. I'm in my world now.
Yes.
And I'm getting ready to give you everything I got.
You're psyching yourself.
But I need my moment. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's again, this is taken years of practice. And will I say perfect? There is no such thing as perfection. Oh. It is a constant work in progress. Yes. It continues to get better and better. And I will tell you through the commitment to consistency, whether I'm feeling like it or not. And this is whether I'm prepping to get on a stage, getting on a podcast, posting something on social, getting on a coaching call, you name it, anything. Mm-hmm. It's the consistency of the commitment that we've got to being better versions of who we are that really at least have pushed me and have helped me continue to push others.
Yes.
But again, we come back to this concept of emotional regulation. Mm-hmm. Would I be accurate in saying that everything we've been talking about so far really is this pathway towards emotional regulation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at the bare minimum, and I think especially, I've worked a lot with men.
Yep.
And I just, there's so much to be said for misogyny and the way women are raised, but there's also so much to be said on the other side of the coin of the baloney that boys and men have been taught about not feeling, be a man. What it does is it cuts off so much of their humanity. And it cuts off so many data points to understand who they are, what they're feeling. It shuts down intuition. We need to understand the landscape, men and women, but particularly men that I've worked with can, not all of course, but can struggle to identify their feelings because they have been conditioned and programmed since childhood to do the exact opposite. Don't feel. But they are told you have one emotion that you are allowed to feel, and that is anger. And so then they say, I'm just an angry guy. But that's okay. But underneath anger are feelings of sadness, fear, right? But they're not allowed to touch those. So they're continually shutting down. So at a bare minimum, with a tool like a wheel of emotion or any other tool, to start to identify in a more nuanced way in this moment, when I reflect on this, whatever the case may be, if they can regulate enough to be circumspect, what am I actually feeling? That is like the gateway to far greater freedom from the stress of anger or feeling shut down or overactivated. So to be like, I'm feeling resentful. I'm feeling impatient. I'm feeling whatever I am feeling. Getting entrepreneurs to do that goes so far, because also I want to think about leadership. We're talking about leadership. What we're really talking about here is self-leadership.
Yeah.
And it starts with self-awareness. Because if you can identify what you're feeling, people are like, well, what's the point of that? then you have the ability to metabolize it, process it, and choose something different, not be stuck either in it or pretending not to be in it, but it's still in that driver's seat, riding shotgun, tuning the, GPS, tuning the radio.
Is this, I guess this leads me kind of to ask you, like, what is imposterism?
Ooh,
is this it right here? Is this a version of it?
Well, there's so many versions of it, but yeah, it can be a version of it.
Okay.
If you feel like, so ideally we want as much congruence as possible. When I'm talking about congruence, I'm talking about authenticity. Your internal experience matches your outward expression. That you don't feel like you have to put on a mask. And then you feel like if people actually knew me, they wouldn't like me. I'm not a good person, or I'm not as confident. Right? Like there's an outward mask and then there's me, and the gap between is so wide. That's a hard thing to contend with on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. Imposterism, however, that's one manifestation of imposterism. What I see typically is this overwhelming self-doubt. Like, what if I can't do it? Mm-hmm. What if I'm not good enough? What if I make a mistake and other people know what I know, but always try to hide? That I'm not smart enough, that I'm not creative enough, that I'm not rich enough, that I'm not successful at whatever it is that you are not enough of. But the reason I say imposterism versus imposter syndrome is that syndrome, that word implies pathology and illness, and particularly for women and women of color. Once they get to those higher echelons, in corporate world, a lot of women either have been told or have said, I have imposter syndrome because I'm such, there are fewer of us in that room. It's saying contextually, corporate America has leaned, and I'm saying America, but North America has leaned more towards men in positions of power. And you can just look at the statistics. There's no arguing that. And it's saying this system that women find themselves in, or people of color find themselves in, that the person who feels uncomfortable in it, they're the one with the syndrome. They're the one with the pathology, rather than saying it's kind of a normal
I see what you mean. Yeah, I understand.
Being an outsider.
Right.
So that's why I say imposterism, not imposter syndrome. And I don't like to pathologize human experiences. That's why I'm talking about common humanity. If we're having feelings of self-doubt or fear, Simon Sinek saying, buddy, if you don't feel that way, who are you? You're not alive, basically.
Right. Yeah.
We need to normalize that we can have any number of feelings. They're not who we are. It helps to move and liberate us. And if we're saying we have some sort of syndrome, the moment someone diagnoses you, you're like, oh, I'm sick. There's something wrong with me. No, it's just something I'm contending with, and there is agency in this.
It's an interesting perspective on that, because I do believe, especially, I hear it often from people. And again, we'll come back to the salesperson who's trying to grow their business, who call it with social media, video. It's a big channel these days for people to really promote themselves. It's very free in a lot of different aspects. Leveraging it is huge. Is it the be all and end all? No, but it is a channel, and is a big one these days. It's not going anywhere. Yet a lot of people turn to me and say, well, like, I remember I had a lady the other day. She said to me, she's like, well, like, I don't really fit into a bikini when it comes to the beach, so I wouldn't want to take a picture of myself that way. And I said, like, I didn't push her to be like, put the bikini on and take a picture. It wasn't that so often. Yeah, no, it was moreover like, you don't need to compare yourself to what other people are doing and how they're doing it. You got to figure who you are.
That's hard.
And then leverage you. And then there comes the fear again that sets in. Yeah, but I'm not this person, or I'm not that person. And I'm going, this is the moment where you do put the blinders on and you go, no, I want you to focus on you. What do you love about you? What do you like about you? What will other people love and like about you that you can put out there?
Yeah. It's such a strange world that we live in, that we're continually branding ourselves. So I also want to normalize, like, that's a really hard thing to do, to be able to say, I am a brand and I'm choosing what part of myself do I want to say this is open for public consumption. that I can say is also authentic? What part of me am I willing to put out there? Because we do, expose ourselves to opinions that have nothing to do with us. People are going to project onto you whatever is going on with them, but you get to choose what part of me do I want to lead with, that I'm saying, yes, I invite public consumption in a way that is both unique to me, but also can connect to a lot of other people.
I think that's an interesting one. I think we all struggle with that in some way, shape, or form, or have, as we put ourselves out there in front of people.
Yes.
I think that, I've got a mentor of mine who said that to me a number of years ago. And I expressed some thoughts, some opinions, some concerns. And he said, he boiled it down and he said, if you're not the truest version of you, the most authentic version of you, then every time you go out there, you're hiding something.
That's right.
You're potentially lying to people.
Yeah.
You're not comfortable in your own skin.
Yeah.
And he said, what you've got to do is you've got to embrace who you are, what you're all about, find your comfort zone and lean into it. And there comes the fear again. Like, what if they don't accept me?
Yeah.
And he was very forward. He says, then they're not your people.
Then they're not your people. It's let the chips fall where they may.
Right.
And not everyone's going to like you.
No. And I think that's something, again, that especially when you put yourself out there, we talk about a branding or a business building or talking to strangers, accept it.
Exactly.
I've my fun line is, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I don't even like tea, so that's okay, right?
But that's why the self-compassion is so important. We could have a whole show on self-compassion because if you are actually going to dare greatly, as Brene Brown says, and you're going to put yourself,
she's awesome.
So good. You're going to put yourself into that arena. You're going to have a lot of people casting a lot of votes, most of them negative. It just happened to me last week. I had a show and people, they talked about the way I looked. They talked about my voice. They told me to shut. I mean, it was just like, wow. And it hurt. Yeah. It didn't feel good. And it took me about 24 hours to sort of move that energy. And it was like, here I am. I need to practice self-compassion.
Okay. I've got to ask you about that then. That's an interesting one. You brought that up. Where were you live? Were you on a show?
It was on my own YouTube channel. And for some reason it went, I was getting hundreds, 2,000, 3,000 views. And suddenly it's like 16,000 views, 16,000 views, which is great. But the trolls came out. Yep. I mean, and it was so funny because it was about love and kindness and the trolls came out. And
so I'm curious, how did you deal with that?
It hurt like hell. It was like, because it was mean spirited. They were malicious and they were about,
time?
It was the first time.
Okay.
And they were about things that, had nothing to do with what we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just mean. And I had to do everything I've talked about. And now it's like, hurt people. A well person does not do that to a stranger. And so I got to the place where I really was like tremendous compassion for them.
Yeah.
I'm
telling you, I get it all the time.
Do you?
I mean, maybe people just don't like me. No, but this is the thing. Like, no, jokes aside, I know there's a lot of people that like me. Like, I know there's a lot of people that tune into it. I know there is. Like, I know it. We get it from the views and the comments and the likes and the data and the firsthand experiences. Like, I know there's a ton. But you sit there, you put out content, and this is again when we talk about fear. This is where people's fears come in, as they go. But what happens if the trolls, what I call the keyboard ninjas, right? I get it all the time. I had somebody call me a dunce cap. I had somebody say, can you move your fat head? I've had people say all sorts. And like,
I could just really, we could laugh so hard at the mean things that people said about me. I was like,
it though, is when you read it, you just said it a moment ago, hurt people.
Yeah.
And you go, compassion. I feel for this individual.
That's how they're
what is so wrong in their world that they have to attack?
That's exactly right. And so I imagined if they, my friend was saying, she's like, Kristin, it's just, you moved up in terms of views. And as you dare greatly and your influence gets greater, it's another level, another devil. Like there are going to be things that come at you that you didn't anticipate. So that is why when, not if, these things come as greater exposure, greater success happens, you just have to love the heck out of yourself unconditionally. And this is where the Brene Brown stuff comes in, because we want belonging, we want connection, but it does activate shame. And the only medicine for shame is love.
You know, there is so much that we have not covered off today but we've covered so much. It's like, it's amazing. It's just, I'm okay. I want to find, just looking at the time here, some specific action steps that we can take away from today's episode, because I imagine we'll do this again. I think there's so much more we can dive into together. Today's action steps, though, from today's conversation, action steps that we can provide to everybody, maybe even the top 2-3 things. Like, look, we talked about fear and how it's normal. We all go through it.
Yes.
Some of it could be stories that we were told when we were younger. Some of it could be completely self-inflicted.
Yep.
How do we get past fear would be one. We talk about some of those moments where we are, my mind is almost boiling it right back down to fear. It's like, I got to make the phone call, scared. I got to post on social media, scared.
It all goes back to fear.
What are they thinking about me? Scared.
Yes. It always boils back to fear when we're feeling small in our world.
I'm not going to get the deal tomorrow. Or what if I don't do the work, or I don't have the next deal in the pipeline? Fear.
Endlessly. It's always fear. There are two energies in the world, love and fear. And what we're trying to do is have more love. Love is confidence. Love is courage.
Okay.
Connection.
How? Give us, let's go. Like
acknowledge it. Acknowledge it.
Okay.
You just have to acknowledge it. Oh, it's here. You have to recognize it's not me. It's just something I'm feeling. Out
loud?
If it helps.
Okay.
Actually, talk to yourself in the third person.
David,
they've done studies.
What are you doing? That's what I did the other day.
Yeah, very good. So instead of saying, why am I feeling it? That leads us down a rabbit hole of all the reasons we're not good enough. Say, what do I need? This is the takeaway I want people to say. What do I need? Do I need to shake? Do I need to listen to ramble on? Do I need to think about this differently? Do I need to breathe? But instead of going, why am I feeling afraid, and thinking of all the reasons that you have to be afraid, because that's just providing evidence of what a scary world and how you're not available to that scary world, you're not ready. What do I need to do instead to move this fear through my body? Because it's not who I am. It's just a habit. Fear is just habit hell.
So you've been through your day. You've helped all sorts of people, as you always do.
Ideally.
Your day is over. How do you know it's been a successful day for you?
Such a good question. Because I feel it in my heart.
Ooh, I like that.
I just feel it in my heart. I feel like, and again, I have a spiritual perspective, not a religious one, but a spiritual one. I want to be here to help people, to teach and to help people heal. And I think back at my clients and what they've learned and where they're at. And I feel humbled and grateful that I could have been a part.
See, I'll tell you, 74 episodes, I believe, 274 today.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
I ask that question on every episode. I don't think a single person has used the word money when I ask, what is a successful day for you? Isn't that something, though?
Well, I love that.
Isn't that cool?
Nobody's
prepared for the question.
Yeah.
And nobody says money. The innate response most often comes back to, I helped other people today.
Yes.
Isn't that something?
So when we think about those trolls, don't go down that rabbit hole. They are the minority. Most people are kind and loving, and they want to do good and be good.
And there's an amazing, amazing feeling when you can look somebody in the eye and say hello. You can smile at somebody. You can politely allow somebody to change lanes in front of you. There's actually something very gratifying about those tiny little actions. And, it really boils down to one word and one word only, and it's kindness. And the more we are being kind and putting out kindness, I would love to say the more we put it out, the more we're going to receive. And I really do believe that in life, like given you shall receive, but don't give to receive.
Exactly.
There's always going to be people that you're going to look at and go, but they're just not kind, or they're just not giving, or they're just, okay, just get past them and keep moving.
Yep. Get past them. Hurt people, boundary. That's theirs, not yours.
Hurt people. I really like that.
Mm-hmm. I wish I made it up.
Kristin, give us some final words. Anything that we can sign off with today to help anybody tuned in, just based on any of the conversation we had today.
Oh my gosh, I've said so much.
I know, it's been fantastic. It really has.
No, I've enjoyed it so much. Just that you're not alone, and people can go into embarrassment and shame and think they need to hide it. And the more, we don't need to lead with our fear, but the more we can lead with humility and choose who we want to be vulnerable with, the more we help elevate everyone.
Deep.
Yeah. Deep stuff.
Kristin, this has been absolutely fantastic. I want to thank you sincerely for making the time for us today on the MindShare podcast. It's been a really heartwarming conversation. Maybe that's the word that comes to mind.
Oh, that means so much. You're very good at this. I just felt really comfortable, and I enjoyed the conversation so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
You are either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms. Maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. While you're there, be sure to download your free copy of our MindShare 101 goal setting worksheet to help you conquer 2024 and become the best version of you that you really want to be. A reminder as well to get yourself booked for our live in-person small group MindShare Mastermind taking place on May 26th through 29th in Mont-Tremblant, Quebec. I'm not telling you anything. This is the event you know nothing about. I'm not telling you anything about the agenda. I'm not telling you what we're going to be doing there. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, then Dave, why would I ever want to book an event like that or join you for something that I have no idea what it's about? Well, I'm going to say this to you. If you got a challenge, if you got a problem, if there's something that you want to do to become a better version of you, I'm going to be in that room with a whole bunch of my friends, and we're going to be there specifically to help you. Problem solving through exactly what you need to problem solve so that you walk out of there after a few days going, I can't wait to do it again. So visit mindshare101.com/mastermind. You'll get some of the details there, but that's all we're giving you. All I can tell you, get yourself registered, be one of the people in that room. Tickets are selling out, so hurry up. Don't wait. For all inquiries, for anything we do, just get in touch with us today. Don't forget to leave a review of this podcast at www.ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. If you're an iTunes person, you can go directly to iTunes. If you're a Android person, you can go directly to Spotify. Of course, you can find this podcast now on YouTube as well. We're all over the place. Check it out. And of course, please leave us a review. Connect with me on MindShare 101 on both Facebook and TikTok, as well as David Greenspan 101 on Instagram. I want to take a very quick moment to say thank you to Kids Keep in Touch Systems, REM Magazine, and OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, for sponsoring this episode of the MindShare podcast. This has been another episode of the MindShare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.